Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Second Watch, your direct line to the Second Mass. I am your host, Will Wheaton. Tonight, I would like to welcome actors Noah Wiley, Drew Roy, Jesse Schramm, and Maxim Knight. Let's get started with tonight's parting of the ways with the Volm. Cochise finally convinces his father to let Tom and the gang go free. Noah, do you agree with Cochise when he said that the Second Mass would die if they were kept in captivity?
Absolutely. This particular group is one that needs to be on the move and constantly engaged in the fight and won't rest until every alien's off the planet.
You're sort of back where you started. You're in Boston, you're on the move again, and now life is going to be completely different. You've spent a year in Charleston, and now you're right back on the road. How are you? Well, you're dead, so I'm not asking you, but how are the Mason men feeling about that? Like, are you looking forward to a year on the road?
Want to take it?
I am. Yeah, I feel like the whole stretch of us staying in Charleston was very taxing on us as a family, and it sort of fractured what we'd put into place. I even feel like it took us back to before the invasion. I always pictured us as being not as together as we possibly could have been. Even in the flashback, we kind of got a glimpse of that. You know, Hal's doing his games, and Tom's busy doing whatever, and the different ones of us doing different things. So I almost feel like being on the run from the aliens has brought us together. And
There was a lot of really uncomfortable tension between Hal and Maggie at the end of the show tonight, loading up the truck. I have an idea about what's going on, but I think everyone's more interested in hearing what you think about it. What's going on there?
you know, I feel like Hal has, I always talk about him having a big heart, and he has allowed Maggie into that.
Yeah.
And this was a huge situation that went down, but I still feel he's willing to forgive that and to move past it. But he's got to talk through it. And she is just so cold to him in those moments when they're packing up and he's trying to help. You see a little frustration coming out. And it's not until she says, why don't you go over there and help these other guys do something? And I just took that line to be the first time she's ever tried to make us do something separate. We've always been together once we got together. And then by her saying that line, it was such a huge thing for him. And I in that moment, I just wanted to just show that heartbreak of, wow, this really is over. I don't know if we're going to be able to get past this.
Yeah, I felt that. I really felt that made me sad, because I've come to really like the strength that they find in each other. Mm-hmm. Jesse, right before Karen was shot the second time,
right?
It looked to me like she was trying to talk to Hal, right? It looked to me something changed in your face.
Yeah.
Like you weren't doing that. I also realized that you never blink, right. Which is creepy and disconcerting. Go back and rewatch the rest. Like go back and rewatch the season, and you will see that Jesse never blinks as Karen ever. It's really it's like there's weeping angels everywhere.
Paul Newman does it too. Right?
But it looked like Karen actual was trying to come through. Am I just projecting, or is that a choice that you made?
You know, it was an interesting night. The way that everything happened kept changing and laying on the cold ground as that was happening. I did kind of have that thing of I'm sorry. There was something in Karen that came, the real human Karen, but also thank you. That was actually in, you know, I don't think you hear it, but yeah. I was saying thank you.
That's cool.
So that's just a side note of what I was doing as Karen, because there was that thing of, well, how much human is there, how much of her isn't, and in those moments, laying there was just that thing of seeing Hal and reaching out for him, yeah. and having a human moment, and it's a release. So her death was kind of a release in my heart. There's this recurring theme this year that anytime a human is under the influence of the Ishveni, that they're not responsible for their actions. Mm-hmm. But everyone in the Second Mass seems to have forgotten that Karen started out as just a harnessed kid. So why is it that like any of you guys can answer this. I'm looking at you because I think I want to know from you. Why is it that the Second Mass is so willing to forgive and forget, but never with Karen?
She's done some pretty egregious things.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
Lourdes did kill the president.
at the moment I shoot her, I believe that she's killed my wife and my baby and numerous other colleagues of ours. And she's not harnessed. She is bought in ideologically to the Ishveni and believes that their worldview is superior to the humans. So I feel at that moment that it's a long time coming, and I don't feel any sympathy for her. I love you, Jesse, and God, we're going to miss you. But it was time for Karen to go.
This is true. I agree. There was a lot going on, and in all the episodes leading up to it, everyone's going, "I want to kill Karen. I want to kill Karen." And if you were to let her go, it's a very weak moment.
How long before you got the script did you know that Karen was gonna be killed?
I didn't. I mean, I think because Karen has had such an arc and a storyline and so intertwined, it was something where I was on a plane and they were saying, well, we're not taking you yet because we're going to keep you alive. We're going to keep you. And so, I mean, I pretty much knew when I was landing that I was done, and then I died and I got on the plane again.
What do you go through as an actor? So, like, I know when you're you're not on the call sheet every day.
Right.
But when you're there, like, you're with the family.
Right.
And you love them. And there's an esprit de corps that happens. So what went through you when you found out I'm not going to be back?
It's a family. So there's that little bit of a heartache that goes, okay, well, I'm not tying up my boots and I'm not keeping my eyes wide open and not blinking for a while, but it is a family that we've made, and that continues outside of the show. But there is that thing of we've been on this camping adventure together, and I'm gonna miss that. So you get me all.
It's tough. It's a very tight-knit ensemble, and anytime we've lost a character, that especially those that have been with us from the beginning, whether it was Dylan Authors or Peter Shinkota, we feel the loss not only of the character on screen, but the person off screen, and it's very difficult. Unfortunately, it's very good storytelling.
Of course.
And it's really hard to have a world where there's a constant threat and no body count. So it goes with the territory. But I have to say, losing you is a tough one.
I remember talking about that last season, that just feels like basically you're safe and nobody else is. Let's talk a little bit about Matt this season. I really liked Matt's story arc this year. We saw him go from being sort of a rebellious teenager who was just constantly getting into trouble, who I would classify as an at-risk post-apocalyptic youth, to being like actually a very integral part of the fighting force of the Second Mass. So you guys are back on the road now. What do you think Matt's future looks like?
Well, I think he's kind of found his place with my father and with the Second Mass military force. As you saw, I was out there on the barge with my sunglasses. So, I think I'm back with the wolf pack.
So tonight, after Karen has left us, she actually gives Tom Mason sort of a parting gift. It turns out that Anne and Lexi are not dead.
Yeah.
And Lexi is now about a 6-year-old child. Side note, I would love it if she aged at that rate, and like over the course of next season, in a week, she becomes an old woman, and starts lecturing people. She becomes a cranky old woman. I think that would be terrific. But the fact that Karen released them, and then she makes the speech about like someday when our interests align, my door is open, right? But
at that moment,
is there sincerity there? Like,
it seems an absolute ploy, because she's at such a strategic disadvantage at this point that it seemed like an olive branch that was being extended from a desperate character. It was my bad. I didn't realize you were going to give me my wife and baby back.
Yeah, right.
But you got them anyway.
I'd waited a couple more minutes. Things might have turned out differently, but.
But the last time we saw Anne and Alexis, they were in like a pod people thing, right? So
thing.
Like, do we even know that it's really them?
I believe it was them, but in retrospect, they were in some sort of sleeping cell, that they were unconscious and being used as bargaining chips potentially for this very inevitability, that she would trade them for her own life if she needed to.
There were two moments this season that completely, like, just knocked me out of my chair. One was tonight when Tom shot Karen, because I just never saw that coming. I didn't think that he had that level of just that, like, I know he talks about holding onto your hate and letting that drive you. I just never thought that he would actually act on it. And then also when Lourdes shot the president. So what do you think this says about Tom? Is this going to fundamentally change Tom Mason?
Well, he's killed humans before.
But a human waving a white flag?
You know, this was a tricky one. We wrote it, as you probably know, several different ways, and we actually shot it several different ways. At one point, everybody collectively in the second mass was going to take a shot at her. At one point, it was going to be just Maggie. At one point, it was going to be just me. And we had a lot of conversations about who had the biggest axe to grind, who was most justified in taking that step. And I felt at that moment that it was a pretty important thing for Tom to do. Yes, it does redefine him to a certain extent. Yes, it was a pretty hard thing to do. But it was necessary. And I think that that's what the third season arc for his character was leadership is a series of Sophie's choices. It's a series of bad scenarios, and you've got to make the best possible situation that you can out of them. And that was sort of the crucible moment, is that if my group's going to survive, I need to eradicate this threat, as beautiful and as sweet as she is.
We have about 2 minutes left, so from each of you, we're wrapping up the season of Second Watch. We've wrapped up the season of Falling Skies. So I'll start with Max. I would love for you to share a memory that really stands out from production this season.
Being out in the rain, episode 7.
Oh, you mean being in Vancouver?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But specifically episode 7 when we visit the pickets.
Yeah.
That episode, that whole thing was just really great. I just like spending time with, the rest of the Mason family. So
yeah.
it was
I really loved that. We didn't really talk about it on that episode of Second Watch, but I really loved seeing the Mason guys back together again and seeing how they function now compared to how they functioned as a unit the very first time we saw them. I really just, it was great. I loved the way that they were all, everybody had each other's backs. And there was that, like, unspoken, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. Like, you guys are a rather formidable team. What do you think, Drew?
This is actually from tonight's episode. We were on the barge, and I was shooting the big gun, trying to take down the beamer. And we're sort of shooting this thing very guerrilla-esque. And they decided that to finish out this take, that they wanted me to swing the gun and then continue shooting. So I swing it, and this thing's huge. We're in the middle of the ocean right there outside of Vancouver. And we're not really paying attention to who's around. And as we turn, there's a giant barge over there that had just come in from China. And all these people are looking out like, what is this guy shooting? And we swing over and start shooting in their direction. Everybody hits the deck. That was one of my best moments.
That's amazing.
For that.
Oh, you were there, Jesse.
You were there, you just didn't notice it.
Yeah. I would have to say that mine is, I was thinking of the rain, but that's most of Falling Skies. Mine was, I think we were filming 3:08. We had done things a little bit backwards, and it was my last day on set. You were in the office scene with the dean and everything like that, and I just remember looking at everyone. I had just brought in Will in as being a police officer, and I was looking at everyone that just came to set, and that to me was the strongest moment of going, wow, I've gotten to work with them. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead and close this out, Noah.
I don't know that I could top that. This was a great season all the way. This was a lot of hard work. We had to pay very close attention to detail and be very vigilant in our storytelling to make all these different disparate storylines weave together. And the whole thing coming together in the way that it did is the thing I'm most proud of.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for spending time with us all season long. A lot of you guys have been in and out all season, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for just entertaining the hell out of me. Yet again, I can't wait to see what happens next year.
You're a big part of our family, man.
Oh, that really means a lot to me. Thank you. That wraps up this season of Second Watch. I have thanked our actors for being here and for sharing their insights into Falling Skies. And I also want to thank you at home for being our faithful audience. You can continue to keep up with what's going on with the Second Mass between now and next season by visiting tntdrama.com. Maxim, I think I want you to take us out. You want to do that for me?
Keep the resistance strong.